welcome. This is PJNet.TV. I'm Coach Prasick, and yes, we are coming in for a landing. We broadcast live Monday through Thursday, and I take Friday off. But anyway, we are coming in for a landing. We are going to finish strong because tonight we have a wonderful member of our PJNet family who comes to us on the third Thursday of every month. I check my calendar, Miss Catherine, and I, 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 I'm glad you checked yours. I knew tonight was your night, and Catherine. So, Katherine Pasour joins us, and you have so much news. You are not at church doing this; you're at your home.
Yes, I have cable internet at my home after struggling with the cable company for more than 2 years. Finally,
What
yes.
What was the struggle?
Well, I live on a rural road, a
Yeah.
side road,
Hmm.
and many years ago, they ran the cable all the way down the road. I'm at the end of the road, and it was attached to the transformer right at my house, about, oh, probably no more than 100 feet from my house. But when I tried to get it connected, they said, "Oh no, it's not in your vicinity." And I called. I went to the local office. I called. I did all kinds of things, and they look on their computer and they would say, "No, it's more than 250 feet from your house. You cannot connect." So finally, I took a picture of the line connecting to the pole at my house. And then when somebody in my family happened to have the cable guy at their house, he called me, and so I zipped over there in my car and showed him the picture. Said, "Look, it is there. It's right there, right at my house." So maybe 3 or 4 months later, I finally got a call saying, "Oh,
Ah.
we have investigated, and there's
Uh-huh.
no limitations to be for you to have cable."
Well,
So
it is
I
so
got it.
sad in this day of technology when they have the computer, they can look things up. But at the end of the day, isn't it nice that there's still human beings out there that can
Oh
put eyeballs
yes.
on it? Because once a human put eyeballs on it, things started moving again. And
Hmm. Well, it was a human that put the information in the computer that it was not here, and but it was in the computer,
yeah,
so it must
t-
be true.
must be true. All right.
Hmm.
Well, I am so happy for you, Miss Catherine,
I'm
because
happy too.
I deal with so many people that they have less than it takes a lot of power, a lot of connection speed
Hmm.
to do what we do here, and for the longest time we ourselves were on the fringe. I had 10 phone lines coming into our studio trying to get enough bandwidth.
Oh wow.
That was all we could do. It was terrible, but you do what you got to do. Um,
I know.
Well, we are coming in for a landing this week, and we are finishing strong. I'm so glad. Speaking of finishing strong, you have accelerated your pace as if you weren't busy enough. You were doing one blog a week, which is a very aggressive schedule.
Hmm.
I mean, a lot of people do once a month. A
Yes.
few people do every other week or bi monthly. Would that be right? No,
Bi-weekly.
bi-weekly would be every 2 weeks, which is actually more than twice a month. It's
Hmm.
26 times a year. There's only 20. Anyway, I digress. But anyway, you're actually blogging now. Get this, folks, twice a week.
Yes, with the release of Honoring God with My Body, which focuses on wellness, I decided to blog an extra time on Wednesdays. I call it Wellness Wednesday, and I will pick a topic from my book or a closely related wellness topic to what I cover in the book and write a shorter blog with some
Mm-hmm.
really practical guidance tips for wellness. This week, I talked about the importance of fruits and vegetables and what's in a serving and why they are so good for us and how we can eat more of them because they are so good for us.
Okay. Well, let's talk fruits and vegetables because I struggle with this. I'm diabetic, And fruits are very good for you, but they are also high in carbohydrates. Any
Yes,
suggestions?
they do have a lot of natural sugar in them,
Which is a carbohydrate.
which is a carbohydrate. Fruits and vegetables both have lots of carbohydrates in them.
Well, vegetables don't. Well,
Vegetables.
it depends. It does depend because people think vegetables are overall, but certain vegetables like what are those green peas called? The little tiny ones. You know,
Legumes,
no, well, all
not
peas. Yeah,
legumes.
no, it's anyway. It's peas, green peas. The round
Yeah.
ones that look like little pebbles.
Hmm.
Those are pretty high in carbohydrates. Some. Here's one for you. Corn, fruit or
It's
vegetable?
very high, very high. So are potatoes. I mean, they are really,
Right,
really quite good.
potatoes
And
are.
they're simple carbs. But what you need to eat is the complex carbohydrates, which is the things that are not as starchy, because the simple carbs, or what we call starch, that turns into sugar as soon as you put it in your mouth and chew it
Right,
up.
right.
It rapidly rushes to your bloodstream. But your
All right.
complex carbs take longer to digest, and then your body can use those more efficiently.
And some examples of complex carbohydrates.
Sweet potato, or
Uh-huh.
a lot of your, a great deal. Think of your brightly colored
Hmm.
vegetables. Uh, those and your grains are also whole grains are complex carbohydrates.
Well,
So
yeah,
oatmeal,
and
whole
they're
wheat,
high in
things like that.
fiber if it's a whole grain. Which now don't get
Mhm.
tricked. On some of the labeling. Whole grain means whole grain, not. Here's one. A lot of people think.
Honey wheat is what tricks people. They think that
Yeah,
honey wheat bread is
yeah,
really great for them.
yeah.
Mm.
I was told that if you ever run out of bread, what you can do is
Oh,
take a sheet of
I know
paper.
what you're gonna say.
Yeah,
But
fold it
go
in
ahead.
half. Okay, dump a teaspoon of sugar in it, fold it in half again. There's your piece of bread. They are nutritionally equivalent to white bread.
That's right.
That
And your
doctor
white
didn't.
potato and your corn is very much the same.
Well, and people think corn is a vegetable. It is not.
Well, it's officially a vegetable, but
No, it is not. It's a
simple
grain. It's a
it's
grain.
a simple
Plain and
carb.
simple. Now, just because you see it growing in a vegetable garden, if that's your
Well,
definition, but corn is a
well,
grain.
that's true,
And
but
people,
still, it's a
tomatoes.
complex carb.
Yeah,
Well,
tomatoes. People think
we could
tomatoes.
argue about tomatoes all day long.
Yeah,
Fruit, vegetable.
no, it's a fruit. There's no doubt about it.
Yes, it is.
Don't
It
put it in your
is.
fruit salad, but it is it is a fruit.
Ew.
But so I struggle trying to get the necessary. So I wind up using a lot of supplements because they're basically 0 calorie, 0 carb to replace that. But it's tough when you're diabetic, and especially I exercise, so your body burns a lot of sugar. And this, oh, by the way, an ounce of prevention is worth a pound of cure, right? So better to
Yes.
not take it in. But when I run, I have this app that tells me approximately how many calories, and it's somewhat distressing because if you go out and if you jog a mile, that's about 90 calories, 80 calories or so, and you think that's the equivalent of one egg.
Yeah. Or one cookie.
Oh, a cookie, I think, is a little higher than 100 calories. But
Well, it depends on how big the cookie is.
well,
You can eat one
it's
about teensy weensy.
it's very depressing.
It is.
But we do need to watch what we eat. But the good news is, if you're diabetic or type 2 like myself, that means your body doesn't want to burn the sugar that's in your bloodstream. The adrenaline simply is not working. It's not that you're not producing it, you're producing it, it's just not burning the sugar. Well, exercise burns sugar first. That's the first thing it's going to burn. And you can lower your blood sugar by exercising. And I'm reading your book, and you have an interesting hint that I've heard before. If you don't have a heart rate meter, I'll give you what to do if you have a heart rate meter. But if you don't, you have some good advice. You should be winded to the point that you cannot. You,
Sing.
I
You need to
can't
be able to
sing.
carry on a conversation while you are walking briskly or jogging.
Hmm.
But if you're able to sing, you're not working hard enough.
I'm going to give you some real good stuff now that would cost you a bunch of money if you hired a personal trainer, which I used to be. All right, take the number 220. Got that in your head? All right. Now
Yeah, I
subtract your
already.
age.
Yes.
That is roughly 100% of your heart rate. Exercise at 80% of that of your heart rate, and do that for 20 minutes, and you're good to go.
Well, we usually used a range, depending on whether you were a beginning exercise person or if you're just starting out, you might go 55 to 80% rather than because you do need to be careful when you first begin. But yes, I know you've got experience of being a trainer, but we always used a
Do you
percentage and you try
do
to
you
stay between that range.
yeah? Do you know what your rested heart rate is?
Do I know what my resting heart rate is?
Hmm.
Yes.
What is it?
It's usually in the high 60s.
High 60s. Mine's in the high
Hmm.
50s. I remember when my rested heart rate would disqualify me from giving blood.
But a lot of that is genetic as well. My husband's resting heart rate was usually around the high 40s or the low 50s, but he was not physically fit. He had a,
Well,
he
yeah,
just,
yeah, that's a problem.
it was
Uh,
genetic. Oh, and I mean, he was very strong and active, but he didn't get
okay,
out and jog.
okay, because usually as your heart muscle becomes stronger, it becomes a more efficient blood pump. And
That's
people
right.
have you ever heard this theory? You're born with a pre-programmed number of heartbeats, and when those are exhausted, you die. So I'm not going to exercise. You ever heard that?
Yeah, and it's ridiculous.
Well, it is. But even if you believe that, even if you believe that, you should exercise, because what exercise does, you will raise your heart rate for 10 minutes, but what'll happen is your heart rate goes down when you're not exercising. So you actually
Yeah,
your heart becomes a more efficient blood pump. It's stronger and can pump a higher volume of blood with one beat, so it doesn't beat as fast. So even if
that's
you
called
believe that horse rubbish,
that's called stroke volume. Being physically fit increases your stroke volume,
mhm,
increased blood flow with each contraction of the
each
heart.
contraction of the heart muscle. That's right. Gosh, you've been around. You've studied this, haven't you?
Well, yes, that's my background. I was in health sciences, so yes, it's my background.
I better shut up, because you'll wind up, I'll wind up showing how ignorant I am compared to
No,
you.
you're not. You're not ignorant. You are not
Okay.
ignorant.
Well, um, speaking of two blogs a week, this week you had a some of your blog. This was kind of a departure from your usual. A lot of times, I kind of compare you to JD. You learn a lot walking. You learn a lot
From my
taking care of the
horses. Yeah.
horses and the chores around the farm or ranch, whatever that abode is that you have. But this week was a little different. Tell us about the dog.
It was a little different, and but actually, I want to start with my horse, and I don't know if JD's in the chat room or not, but he knows who Peaches is. Peaches is a half draft horse and half paint, and so she's a great big horse, and she's a Palomino color, but has white splotches on her. And I bought Peaches for my husband when she was 6 months old. He always wanted a big horse, and he was gonna breed uh, her to a donkey, and we were going to have giant sized mules. Well, so Peaches came from Canada. She was a PMU foal. Have you ever heard of those?
Mm-mm.
This was back in the day when it was much more popular for women to go on hormones following menopause, and the hormones at that time were made from pregnant mare urine, so they were called PMUs. So they were ranch. Yeah, that sounds pretty disgusting, doesn't it? So there were big ranches in Canada and other places as well, who their only task was to breed horses so they would have pregnant mares and they would collect the urine in order to make these hormones. And so unfortunately the foals were not really wanted because
Hmm.
that's not they
Right.
weren't breeding them so they'd have lots of baby horses to sell. They were breeding them because they needed the mare to be pregnant
Hmm.
in order to harvest the urine. So these ranches wanted to sell the foals. And so the place where I was boarding my other horse, a farm in western North Carolina, she liked to get some of these foals. And so she asked me if I wanted one. So I said, sure. My husband wants a big horse.
Mm.
So Peaches made the trip all the way from Canada, big truck with a bunch of other horses. And when she arrived, we immediately started training her. Well, I'd had horses all my life, but I'd never trained one. So the owner of the farm was my mentor. She was going to help me with the training. This little big horse. She was already big, but she was just 6 months old. So um, the owner of the farm gave me this book. It was called "Don't Shoot the Dog." So when I looked at the title, I thought, what is this? But it was actually a book about training animals. And of course, it could transfer to people too, but that's a later in the story. But the title of the book came from an example that the author gave. They say, let's say that you have a dog, and the dog barks constantly, incessantly. It disturbs all the neighbors. The homeowners can't sleep because the dog barks all the time. So, what do you do? Well, you could try all kinds of solutions, I suppose. One might be to give the dog away, but a surefire solution would be to shoot the dog. I mean,
Or
that
the
would eliminate
neighbors. Yeah. Right.
that would eliminate the noise. But that's not what the author was advocating. The author was advocating training and alternate behavior. So, and that premise, that concept, she used throughout the book, and it could be applied in situations of training dogs or training horses. So, say you've got a horse that bites. Well, whatever it is that is incentivizing the horse to bite, you need to train an alternate behavior to that. And it works with humans too. If we've got a bad habit, we need to train an alternate behavior to substitute for that bad habit. And so that's what my blog had focused on. My regular blog focused on this week, and it applies, back to wellness. If we've got a negative habit that's affecting the health and well-being of our body because we're doing something that's not good for us, then I suggested we could train an alternate behavior. And it works with in counseling sessions, or someone's in a program where they are trying to break an addiction. That's what they'll do. They'll train an alternate behavior. If the person has a circle of friends that seem to contribute to the addiction, then the counselor is going to suggest that they make new friends, or they don't go to places where they might be tempted to use alcohol or drugs. So they're training a new behavior. So it's a proven method, but it was just interesting the way that this author used that. It's a catchy title, that's for sure. They tell us we're
Hmm.
supposed to have a hook, and so that's definitely a catchy title. That's a good hook.
So I'm reading in the chat. Annie Yorty has a
Oh,
question,
hey, Annie.
and I don't know if you know the answer, but here's her question. I want to know what behavior they use to replace the barking.
uh, well, it's been. I was afraid that somebody might ask me that because I still have the copy of the book, but I do not know where it is. It's in a safe
Well,
place somewhere.
I
So
think a
there's.
dog barking that's pretty natural for a dog to bark, but you've got to find what triggers it. Now, I recommend, Catherine, that everybody, whether you have a pet or not, should attend dog obedience training for the same reasons that you point out in your blog. The principles that you learn can be applied to our own lives. And several principles I learned in dog obedience training. The first command that you must teach is look. Look. It is unfair to the animal to give them a command if they're not actually paying attention. You first have to get their attention, so you learn the command look. And I thought, now there's a lesson. How many times? Oh, I have this pet peeve. I have a pet peeve. If someone is speaking to me, I want them looking. I want to make, eye contact. Do not speak to me from another room. That really pulls the pin on my grenade. If you want to address me, come into my presence and address me. But don't speak to me from another room. I hate that. My blood boils. My hair catches on fire. Another important principle that I learned in dog obedience training is consistency. If you don't want the dog on the furniture, let's say your couch, don't wait until company comes over, then the dog gets on the couch, and then scold the dog for getting on the couch. That's unfair to the animal. Either the couch is off limits or it's not. Be consistent.
Right. Same way with raising children.
I think it's wonderful training for life.
Yes, it is. But having the dog jumping on the sofa is a really good example. We could investigate what's causing the dog to bark. Of course, it is a natural.
Right.
It might mean to change the habitat, to change the feeding schedule, to change how you reward the dog. If you go outside and chastise the dog every time it barks, it's actually rewarding the dog because the dog is gaining your attention.
Right.
So you need to have an alternative to that.
Any discipline that is employed must be applied immediately upon the offense. You can't let time go by and then get on to them for something they don't remember. They don't know. Here's one that I struggled with. Okay, let's say there's a need to discipline the dog, so people will say, "Dog, come here," and then discipline the dog. Wait a minute.
Call it to you and then smack it.
Right? No, you're teaching it not to obey. That's dumb. That's just wrong.
That's right.
It's so wrong. So
that is right. Well, something I've done with my horses when I'm trying to change. They had gotten into the habit, and horses are you need a lot of repetition, the same way with dogs and children too, to train any type of behavior. And they had just suddenly gotten into a habit of wandering off just when I was getting ready to feed them. They had picked up this idea that they had to walk down the fence line and walk all the way back. And I don't know where they did it, where they got that idea, but they had picked up that behavior. And I really didn't want them, because I have to stand there and protect one of them from being overpowered. Peaches is a bully. And so when I feed the smaller horse, I have to stand guard because Peaches gobbles her food up really fast and then she tries to steal the other one. So with this business of wandering off, this made it take longer. And I was not patient. So I was trying to break them of that habit. And so to do that, I started throwing them a tidbit of hay in there first before I went into the barn to get the feed out. Because when they heard the barn door open, it's a sliding door. When they heard that open, off they went down on their trek to the other side of the pasture. So I started putting something in there to tempt them, to make them stay while I went and opened the door.
And kind of pacify them. Yeah.
I'm training an alternate behavior. Whereas when you hear the barn door open, you don't run to the other side of the pasture because you think there's whatever reason it was that they were doing it. When you hear the door open, you know it's coming, but you're chomping on that hay that I put in there just to distract them.
Well, offer a distraction.
Yeah.
Just to redirect their attention.
Yes, redirect.
Yeah.
Same thing we do with children. Yeah.
My dog is excellent on sounds. It knows when I start shutting down, the sound the computer makes when it shuts off, the sound my the lights and all that, boy, because he'll be sleep. You'll think he's just dead to the world over there. And boy, when he hears that click of me shutting that power switch off, boy, he up and he's on it. He knows it's time to go out, and sometimes I have to turn things off when it's not time to, go eat.
Oh, so he'll be ready to go out. So he knows you're going out of your
Yeah,
studio and
right.
either for a walk or to the house or something.
Yeah. If I'm shutting the computer down, it's time to go. Usually,
Hmm.
there are other circumstances. But it amazes me at how smart they are. In fact, the dog tries, or it's all animals. They try to train us. Okay, so the
Oh,
deal is,
absolutely.
you know, the
Especially cats.
yeah, the deal is, if you go outside and do your business, when you get back in, you get a treat. So he comes through that door, he sits on his haunches with his head up and his ears up, waiting on his treat. Well, he got thinking just because he crosses the threshold of the door, that's a treat. See?
Hmm.
No.
Oh,
So
yes.
he'll stand by the door, and if the door, we've learned to just not latch the doors. He can open a door. He knows how to open a door. And he'll go outside and come back in and sit his haunches right there by the treat jar. It's like, I came in. I crossed I crossed the threshold. Where's my treat?
Where's my reward? One
And
thing I
I
did, sorry,
go
one thing I
ahead.
did point out in that same blog is if we're trying to change a habit or behavior that we know is not good for us, our best guidance, our best weapon, our best ammunition is our counselor. It's the Holy Spirit. That's whom we need to reach out to help when we need to change something because Jesus will be our guide. Our Father is with us in whatever trial that we're in, and if we're trying to take a bad and get rid of a bad habit and replace it with a good one, we call on the Holy Spirit to help us, and He will come to our aid because we're doing something that's good for our body, and therefore we are able to honor God by taking care of our body.
Right.
Oh,
Well,
thank you for putting up the cover. Thank
you
you.
you say he will come to our aid. Actually, he doesn't have to come anywhere. He's already within us.
He is already there,
We
but
can
sometimes
marshal.
he's waiting for us to
Right.
call.
We can marshal up that help on demand, but
Hmm.
we have to. God's not going to. He gives us free will,
That's
and
right.
sometimes we resist the the Holy Spirit, and we cut the wires that go
Stubborn.
to the. Yeah, animals get themselves in trouble. I've seen animals that are ensnared. They get their horns tangled up in the soccer net or something. And
Hmm.
and the humans come to help them, and of course the animal resists because they feel
They're
threatened.
scared.
They're
They're
scared.
afraid.
They're afraid.
Hmm.
Well, we've got more sense in that, don't we?
Yeah, right.
You see
uh,
the irony, don't you?
I do. I do. We are
We
just as.
understand. First of all, we're smart enough not to get ourselves in that much trouble.
Yeah,
Uh,
right.
but if we do get in trouble, we're smart enough not to resist the ones that are trying to help us. But in my Christian walk, I know so many times I got myself in trouble. I didn't. You hear people say, "Oh, I stumbled into." Catherine, I know not of one time that I stumbled into sin. Not one.
You dived in.
I elected it. I
You
chose it.
leaped. You leaped in.
Yeah, right.
Yes.
But people say, "Oh, I
Well,
just," it's like, "Oh, it
me
just
too.
happened." Right? Yeah. No, it didn't just happen. You were tempted, and you gave in.
That's right.
In fact, a friend of mine, was well, he had a drinking problem, and we were in a little men's group, and one of the other men said, "Well, so and so, are you still struggling with drinking?" I said, "No, there's no struggle. He just gives in." just,
Yeah.
we give in far too easy. Um,
Hmm.
yeah, I did manage to remember to put the book cover up there. I am actually going through this book, Honoring God with My Body. Now, I don't know of many books like this. It's not really I wouldn't call it a devotional. It seems more like it's written as a study guide in a group setting.
It can definitely be used for that. I've done it as a Bible study several times. Actually, wrote the bones of the book back in 2014, and I did it as a Bible study in my church and community 4 or 5 times, and got feedback on it and added to it, and that was very helpful. But yes, it works very well as a small group Bible study.
Well, a lot of times when people, some of the ideas or images or thoughts that come to mind honoring God with my body, we think in terms of fitness, and thus far into the book that seems to be the focal point, but there's a point that is often neglected. We touched on it. The Holy Spirit, our body is a temple of the Holy Spirit. The Holy Spirit lives within us as Christians. Okay, I think we all kind of nod our head and say, yeah, I get that. Okay, well, do you then realize that when you engage in unhealthy practices, the Holy Spirit doesn't have the option of leaving your body? You're dragging the Holy Spirit into that as well. Have you ever thought about that?
Not really in that form. I thought more about the fact that the Holy Spirit, I think, would mourn that we were not taking care
Yeah.
of the temple where He was abiding. I think it would deeply sadden the Holy Spirit to know that we didn't care about the temple enough to take good care of it.
There's a lot of things that we can't control. We can't control our genetics.
That's right.
We can, but when I see some of the trends and statistics in this culture, now this isn't a Christian versus unbeliever paradigm. We are becoming a bunch of lazy and obese people.
Well, that's just getting it right out there. Yeah. We try not to be. Well, I don't know. You just said it right out there. Yes, that's true. It is. But to add something to what you said, we cannot control our genetics, but our environmental choices can begin to influence the the genetics of future generations.
I hadn't thought of it that way. I
Yeah,
know
so
that diabetes is partly attributable, to your DNA, your genetic
mhm.
makeup, but you can mitigate the effects of that. You don't have to give in, and
You
you
can
can
certainly
improve
manage
on
it
it.
a lot better
You can
by
manage,
your
and but
wife's
but Catherine, we're a culture. This chaps my hind parts. We,
Go sit on an iceberg.
I I used the nicer version of that for this
I
program.
appreciate it.
Okay, if we were not on the air, it would sound different.
I know.
Um, Instead of exercising, people would prefer to take a pill, and
Yes, it's
I just
easy.
I don't I think the fewer medications we're on, the better. My goal when on a med is to get off of it.
Hmm.
Now, sometimes you can't. I have to take high blood pressure medication. If I don't, it races up and stays there, regardless of anything I do. you know. But like the diuretic that I take, I've been able to reduce the dosage gradually over time, and now I can drink more coffee and tea. um, and keep it a while. You know what I'm saying? It's hard when you're on the air for an hour, at a time. Um, but there's so much that we can do. But we as a culture prefer to treat the problem with another pill rather than we're treating the fruit but not the root. We're addressing the symptom rather than the problem
Right. But you know why that is.
because we're fat and lazy.
And it's a lot easier to take a pill than it is to get out and walk 2 miles.
And why is it that insurance companies will pay for corrective surgery but won't pay for preventive health care such as recommended in your book?
Now some of them will.
Really?
Some of them will give you reduced rates if you are in a wellness program. I mean, some of them will. They're not all that
Oh,
way.
oh, you can get
But
paid to eat broccoli. Oh, you know the
but
difference
they should
between
do more. They should do more of that. They really should
right.
do more
We
incentives for
well,
people who are.
I have cysts that develop on my body, and it is, they just say there's nothing you can do about it. You're going to have them the rest of your life. But the insurance won't pay for it until it's surgically removed.
Because it's cosmetic. They view it as cosmetic surgery.
Right, right. And it would be better to treat that before it gets the size of a football,
Yeah.
and requires literally in office. It's office surgery, but nonetheless, it is surgery and it's expensive. But insurance companies don't worry too much. They don't focus enough on prevention. They emphasize intervention more than prevention. That's
Right.
changing gradually.
But not
Gradually.
fast enough. Yeah, we need to keep on them.
Oh, we were talking about vegetables earlier. Broccoli. You recognize broccoli when you see it, don't you?
Oh, absolutely. I love
Okay.
broccoli.
Yeah. Do you know the difference between boogers and broccoli?
I don't know what the safe answer is,
Yeah.
but
Kids won't eat broccoli. Kids won't eat broccoli.
oh, that's terrible.
I knew you'd like that one, but
Oh, no,
well,
I didn't like it.
Catherine, it's going to be a month before we get to be. You know what? Let's see. Let's look. If you are on the third Thursday of the month, you know what that means, don't you? You know what that means for November?
Well, I looked yesterday.
Uh
I
huh.
looked yesterday. I believe it's the week before
We
Thanksgiving.
lucked out, didn't we?
No,
We lucked out because there are
I think so.
um, the month. It turns out the third Thursday is the week before Thanksgiving. Um, so are we going to have a Thanksgiving party of some kind? What you got planned for the month ahead?
Oh, we'll do something. But I'm going to have a book birthday party at church the second uh, weekend in November.
Hmm?
And it will be fun. We'll have door prizes and refreshments and a book signing, and it'll
Broccoli,
be exciting.
and
Might have some broccoli. Yeah, but no boogers.
well,
The Thanksgiving, I haven't thought that far ahead. I'm in the middle of trying to market a book. I don't hardly have time to breathe.
marketing books is something most authors just detest.
It's a lot of work
It's no
and
fun.
scary too.
It's
Well,
scary.
it's like throwing yourself out there in the middle of a group of strangers and say, "Please like me, please like me, please like me."
Yeah. Well, what I hate, and I mean, and I really, I don't dislike marketing. I do absolutely have a disdain for self-aggrandizement. And it's hard for me to call attention to marketing, because that's essentially calling, in the case of authors as well as the case of PJNet, essentially it's
Yeah,
calling attention to yourself. And I repulse that. I
yeah, isn't that
resist that.
so hard? I'm an introvert. It's really hard.
It's not that I'm introverted. I guess I
Right.
grew up with watching too many televangelists.
Ooh, yes, I
And that
do
gave
know.
me just a bitter, bitter taste in my mouth that persists to this day. I tell people uh, who come on our program when we do our little pre-production thing, look, if you go to the pjnet.tv website with your credit card in your hand saying, I want to depart with my money, there's no way. There's nothing to buy. There's no way. And I want to keep it that way. I
Mm.
want to commit the time that we spend here on these programs to having people share their story rather than thanking our sponsors and running commercials or begging for money. I detest it, but I just think it siphons away from the mission, from the ministry. But at the same time, if you've written a book, what do you think? If it's out there on the shelves, people will just find it and buy it. Well, that's no,
No,
doesn't work that way.
that's not it. It's not it.
I wish
And
there
the
were some
hurts.
creative ways to do this, but I haven't seen
Right.
any.
Yeah. We're trying all of the traditional ways to do it, but I wish there was an easier way to walk into a bookstore and speak to the manager saying, "Wouldn't you like to stock my book on your shelves?" I really wish there was an easier way to do that.
Well, I guess you could offer to do a book signing because it can't sign them if they don't buy them.
Oh yes, I mean that's easier, but getting them to put it on their shelves, that's
Well,
tougher.
better to have it on the shelf for just the book signing than not at all. Um, I was kind of impressed. I don't know if you saw the time that Lori Hayes was on our program. She went and found a bunch of little independently little shops, little at the beach,
Mhm.
and she somehow went on kind of a tour, and she must have got 7 or 8 stores to stock her books to have a
I
book
did
signing.
see that.
I thought
I
that
did.
was
I did see her show that.
now I don't know how many books it sold, but I thought it was rather clever. Um, and I think it would probably add to the experience of the people going to the beach. I mean, I thought that was one of the better ones. I hope
I
it
think
would.
so, especially since her books are about the beach. I mean, that's an
Right, right.
ideal book tour for her to do.
Yeah, I don't know if any fitness clinics or I don't know, but it takes a little creativity these days. It really does.
Right. And if
Um,
you have ideas, please share them. Those of you in the chat room, if you have ideas, please
if
share.
yeah, if I had the answers to any of these questions, I would write a book and I wouldn't have to market it. It would sell itself. How to market? Write a book on how to market your book. I've never written a book. I've never marketed a book. I help people with doing that.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
um, all right, well, let me just check the chat one more time. Oh, Annie, again, my dog is really well trained, except for the bark. Let me focus on really well trained because there's a lesson here. Um, there's a difference between discipline and punishment, although we use these words very interchangeably in conversation. But there is a significant difference between the two words. For example, if you were at some event, some party, some gathering, and you see the parents of a child that is very well behaved, you say, well, that's a well disciplined child. I've never heard anybody say that's a well punished child.
Yeah. Well,
Okay.
punishment is just one aspect of discipline.
Well, one thing I learned in dog obedience school is look, discipline does involve punishment, which implies it involves pain. And this was one of the first, in the first 5 minutes, they're saying this because they said if you cannot bring yourself to the point of disciplining your dog to the point there's a little yelp, you don't want to hurt the dog, but there needs to be a yelp. They need to get it, you know. And he said, then I can't help you, and neither can anybody else. But I heard somebody, the purpose of discipline is correction. The purpose of discipline is correction. Well, the reason we want to correct it in many cases is because we care for and love the animal. If the dog just bolts out into the road, well, that could kill the dog. So
Hmm.
we train it, and it may involve discipline. Well, but we don't like God's discipline sometimes. We should because He only disciplines us because He loves us.
Hmm.
But we think that sometimes God is this like cosmic killjoy that doesn't want us to have any fun. No, no. And I heard this said, and it was very profound, and it impacted me. A well disciplined dog can be let out in the yard. A poorly disciplined dog has to remain caged or tied up. Discipline is the mechanism, is the path to freedom.
Hmm.
There is no freedom without discipline. The two are incompatible.
Right.
No, we're
Very
not
well
free to
said.
just do anything we want to. But if we will discipline ourselves, we can be free and we can be safe What could be, what more loving? How more loving could God be by giving us boundaries, giving us consistent, clear rules, and loving us enough to discipline us? And the ultimate purpose of discipline would be self discipline.
Right. And the fact that that means he believes in us. He believes that we are capable of becoming mature, discerning people that
Mm-hmm.
can follow him and make decisions that are the best for us and in service to him.
Winding it up, while we're on the subject of discipline, people think because I'm a coach that I'm big on motivation. Yeah. Well, motivation is a good thing when you have it. The problem with motivation is you cannot summon it. You cannot marshal it up. It comes and goes. It's a feeling. But discipline. Catherine, I assure you, when I do my push-ups and when I run, I cannot remember a single instance ever that I was motivated to do so. I am, however, disciplined. So, folks, don't wait on motivation. You cannot control motivation. It comes, it goes. But you can instill discipline in yourself. And it's odd that the word discipline, of course, is the same word as the root word of disciple.
Mm-hmm.
We are to make disciples. Well, if we're making disciples, it's implied, it is necessarily prerequisite that we be a disciple. you know, you can't lead beyond where you're at. You cannot push a rope. You heard about this guy that was pulling this chain. He's on the side of the road pulling a chain. And the law enforcement officer saw that and he stopped the man. He says, "Why are you pulling that chain?" I said, "You ever tried to push one?" Oh, Catherine. Well,
We got
Catherine,
lots of good advice tonight.
I'm loaded with it. Well, Catherine, I'm glad we had a little extra time, and I'm so glad that I'm enjoying your book, Honoring God with My Body. It's folks, make it a part of your life. Not just read the book. That's not the point. The point
Mm-hmm.
is to change your life. And this
Take
book
action.
is a
Mm-hmm.
guide, and I can think of no better tour guide than Miss Katherine Pasour. You can find her at katherinepasour.com. It's been on the screen for some time.
Yeah.
Write it down and go there. Catherine, glad you got cable and glad you're part
Me
of the.
too.
It's always good to have you on our program and in our chat room. You're so faithful, and we appreciate you, and we appreciate you sharing with
Thank you. It's
everybody
been good to
tonight.
be here. Thank
Always
you.
a pleasure. Thank you, ma'am. Well, that was and is Katherine Pasour here on pjnet.tv. Thought we'd take a little extra time tonight, and she's such a blessing to us here, and in fact, all who she encounters. I just know it. I'm certain of it. We're doing something tonight. As soon as we shut down here, I am re-engineering the PJNet Eagles Nest studio. Not really re-engineering. I'm building a new desk. This will be the third one. I tend to get it right on the third one. Folks, my desk is literally a piece of plywood on two sawhorses. You can't make this stuff up. It is. And I've got some new ideas, and I'm not happy. Well, you just get, you're not, you can do better. And I have been applying polyurethane to a piece of plywood that I've cut. 5 coats of poly on that thing. It's slick, which is important so that it will repel liquids. And I've even, this is all made to go on the road, and I've got these handholds I've cut in them. So I can pass the wires through that, but I can also use those to carry that and load it, unload, because we do travel. And so I'm going to be up all night tearing this down because I don't appear on camera on Friday night, Steve Hazards takes the helm. And he does his program tomorrow evening. We hope that you will make it for that. I certainly, well, if I can put all this stuff back together by then, I guess my laptop will still work. I can do it that way, but I hope you'll join. And keep Miss Barbara, our producer, in your prayers. She's sick. She's not feeling well. And we really, 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 we miss her. All of us miss her. But I really, really, really miss her because all the things she does, I'm having to do those too. And I'm not good at it, okay? I'm not. Well, I don't have enough time, and she just does everything so smooth. She just handles things. And she's been such a faithful servant. And I really appreciate her, and we miss her, and we hope that she will be restored to good health as soon as possible. So, all right, well, as I leave, I'm about to do a lot of stuff. Here's what I would ask that you do, and it won't impact me. This is for you. It won't help me at all. Okay. Here it is. Ask yourself and answer yourself honestly. Just 2 simple questions. Ready? First question. What is the single boldest thing you have ever done in the kingdom of Christ? Second question. How long ago was that? And the challenge, you see, is to never be satisfied with either answer.